Hello and welcome to the Nervous System mini course, day 3, and welcome to the Healing Happens community. If you are new, my name is Elsa Karinke, and I am so excited to have you here. If you have not watched the recordings for the first 2 days of this mini course, I highly suggest that you go back and watch those first. The material is building on itself each day, and so I do highly suggest that you watch them in order. So I'm happy you're here, but start from the beginning and work your way forward. So today we are going to change it up a bit, and I'm going to teach you a pranayama practice that is meant to be more activating to the sympathetic nervous system today. So far we have focused on pranayama practices that are a bit more calming, a bit more grounding, have more of a parasympathetic activation effect. And today we're going to get right in there and we are going to fire it up with breath of fire. So this practice is called Kapalabhati, or breath of fire. If I have any yogis in the house, you may be familiar with this technique, but if you're not, no worries, I will teach you. So I'm going to teach you the technique. And then what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes, do a little bit of sensation tracking before the practice. Then I will cue you through the pranayama practice, and then we'll do sensation tracking after. So we can just kind of notice if this practice had any particular effect on the sensations in our body, how we're feeling in our system, etc. Okay? So Kapalabhati, or breath of fire. So for this technique, first of all, I just want to say, if you are pregnant, we want to avoid the belly pumping. So if you are a pregnant mama, you'll just skip out on this one. If you are having like menstrual cramps or any abdominal pain for any reason, this technique may not be for you. Also, if you have any conditions that create overheating in the body, this probably should be skipped, just because we are going to build quite a bit of internal heat and energy and fire through this practice. But for breath of fire, the focus is on the exhale. So there's a short, quick exhale where you snap your belly back towards your spine. And then the inhale happens passively or reflexively as a rebound from that sharp exhale. So I'm just going to orient my camera like this really quick so you can kind of see. So as you exhale during this technique, it's going to look like this. So you can see that my belly is snapping back pretty sharply, and I'm not trying to inflate my belly on the inhale. It just simply happens as a rebound from the sharp exhale. So we'll practice it just a couple times now, and then we'll do the full practice in a moment. So you can go ahead and close your eyes or leave them open. Feel your sit bones on the floor. Lengthen your spine towards the ceiling or the sky. And the best way to begin this one is to take like a little half inhale and then begin exhale. We'll go slow. Exhale. So just go ahead and release that. Breathe normally for a few breaths. And you can blink your eyes open if they were closed. So this technique is typically done at a pretty fast pace, like exhale, 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 exhale. But know that you don't need to do it that fast. You can take it at whichever pace is comfortable for you once we get started. When we do it for the purpose of today, I will start slow and then I will cue you to go faster. However, if you want to stay with the slower pace, that's okay. Okay. But first, we're just going to begin how we've begun every day by limiting sensory information from the outside, shifting our focus from the external world to our internal world. So you can either close your eyes or leave them open. What are you feeling inside? What sensations are present in the container of your awareness, and where are they? Where are you feeling them? And then we'll begin breath of fire. So this practice happens exclusively through the nose. So seal your lips. Take a little half inhale. Exhale. Exhale. Snap your belly back towards your spine every time. Keep going. Speed it up. Keep going. If you get a little lightheaded, that's okay. That's normal. For my more advanced practitioners, if you want to pull up on Mula Bandha, your pelvic floor, as you are snapping the belly back, you can do that. And as you breathe, keep noticing. Notice what you're feeling inside. Keep going for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale all the way out. Empty, empty, empty. Pull your navel towards your spine, round your back. And then take a deep inhale in, sweep your arms up overhead, interlace your thumbs, extend your fingers straight up. If you know Mula Bandha and you want to squeeze up on Mula Bandha, go for it. Pull the pelvic floor up and in, pull your navel toward your spine. And hold full, hold the breath in for as long as you can. And then when your body says it's time to exhale, slow exhale, release your thumb. Sweep your arms down for the full length of the exhale. And then again, just sit with sensation. Notice what you feel inside. Notice if anything has shifted as a result of that breathwork practice. And then tuck your chin down, blink your eyes open, gaze at one spot in front of you. And then slowly bring your eyes up to the horizon line. Gaze around your space. And then bring your eyes back to the screen. All right, so I'm just going to dive right into today's lesson. So today I'm going to talk about the orienting response. So orientation. So when I have you blink your eyes open, I've had you do this each day that we've done these practices, and I have you gaze around your space. I'm encouraging you to orient to the room that you're in. So we are constantly orienting to our environment. We're constantly noticing what's around us. We're also noticing what's going on within us. And I'll speak more about the back and forth of that in a later lesson. But for today, we're just gonna acknowledge that orientation is one of those unconscious things that our system is doing all the time. It's important for us to know both what's going on in our internal world and kind of have like a proprioceptive map of what's happening within us. And then it's also important for us to be aware of, where we are in relation to, I messed that up. So the internal awareness is interoception. Proprioception is external awareness. So caught me off guard for a second. So interoception, what's going on in here? Proprioception, where are we in relation to everything else in our space? And, moving back and forth between these things is healthy. So you're walking along, you're outside, you're on a hike, and, we're constantly just taking in our environment. That's how we attune to our environment. That's how we relate to other beings, whether that's human beings, plants, animals, nature, etc. We're orienting and we're relating and we're attuning. And then inevitably throughout our lives, we're exposed to different types of stimuli. So when we are faced or exposed to a stimulus that could be potentially threatening, our bodies subconsciously go through a particular process, which I'm going to walk you through right now. So this is what happens when we are exposed to something potentially threatening, potentially traumatic. Our nervous system is going to go through a series of steps here. So, we're walking along, we're engaging in what's called exploratory orienting. And then let's say we're walking on kind of like a deserted hiking trail and we see like a coiled object, like just off the trail. So we're walking and we see this. And the first thing that happens is there's the startle response. So it's startle, arrest, preparatory orienting. And so the startle is like that. And arrest means stop. Cardiac arrest is when your heart stops beating. And so the startle and arrest responses often happen simultaneously, or it's like so close together that we can't really discern the difference. So typically When we hear a sound that scares us or, kind of jars us, or we see an object that's potentially threatening, typically startle and arrest happen simultaneously, and it looks something like this. It's like, okay, we're all pretty familiar with that one. And then we engage in this process of preparatory orienting. So when we see something that's potentially threatening, it's up to our system to discern whether it is a threat or not. And there's an acronym for this, which is LIE, L-I-E. So first, we locate the potential threat. So if we see something, the locating is typically easier because, like we see exactly where it is. But if it's a sound, for example, often the first thing we do is we will turn our heads towards the sound, like towards the direction that we believe it came from. And we try to discern, like, how far away is it? How close is it to me? In what direction is it coming from? And where am I in relation to this potential threat? So first we locate, then we identify. So when we see a potential threat, a lot of times the startle response happens before we actually know what it is. So in the case of a sound, a gunshot and a firework sound quite similar. In the case of a sight, a coiled rope and a potential venomous snake could look very similar. So once we've located the threat, we actually have to identify it. So in the case of, you're hiking, you see something coiled, like just off the path, you identify it. So if it's a rope, so once we identify it, we go into evaluation. So, okay, I've identified this as a rope. For me, I do not evaluate a coiled rope on the side of a hiking trail as a threat. For some people, maybe it is. For most of us, probably not. If I discern and I identify that this coiled object is in fact a poisonous snake, I will identify that as a threat. In the case of a sound, if I am like, okay, it's the 4th of July, it's a firework, I will be like annoyed, but I will not evaluate that sound is a threat to me. If I do identify that sound as a gunshot, I will evaluate that as a threat to me, depending on how close I am to it. So we're exposed to a stimulus, startle, arrest, locate, identify, evaluate. If we evaluate that this stimulus is not a threat, we will likely just continue on our way. Like we may have to discharge some of that like startle energy. There may be some excess cortisol. We might like kind of shake it off, or we might shimmy it out, or we might take a few deep breaths or something like this to just discharge that initial arousal energy from just being startled or being scared. But we will pretty quickly downregulate our system and go about our day and resume this exploratory orienting. If we evaluate that this stimulus is a threat, our system is going to begin what's called defensive orienting. So our system is going to make a choice of whether or not we want to fight, flight, or freeze. Now, remember yesterday, I talked about how fight and flight are sympathetic responses, and freeze is a parasympathetic response. But even in the case of freeze, there is still a significant level of sympathetic activation turned on underneath the parasympathetic brake system of the freeze response. The details of that are way beyond the scope of this mini course. I'm going to be teaching a much longer, much more in-depth, full-length course on the nervous system starting at the end of November. Then I'll be going much more into detail about these things. But for now, just know that if after locate, identify, and evaluate, your system registers the stimulus as a threat, you will begin defensive orienting, and your system will choose fight, flight, or freeze. Now, when I say I'm choosing my words carefully. Notice how I didn't say you will make a choice, because typically when we think about ourselves making choices, we're thinking about conscious choices. We're thinking about, our intellectual minds being like, okay, like which are the best of my options here? That's not this, like if you are about to get bitten by a poisonous snake, or you do hear a gunshot, or you're hiking and you come across a bear, you don't have time to sit there and be like, should I freeze? Should I run? Should I try to fight this thing? Like, let me weigh the pros and cons of this decision. No. Your primal system is activated. Your nervous system just takes over and makes these decisions for you. So this choice can be based on different things. Each of us has kind of like a tendency of where we go in terms of our trauma responses based on, the ones that were more deeply ingrained in our childhoods. However, this could be based on how far away you are from the threat. So for example, if I'm hiking and all of a sudden I'm like face to face with a bear, I'm like this far away, I'm probably going to choose freeze, because the likelihood of me being able to run away effectively or fight that bear effectively when I'm already this close, not very good. So I'm probably going to choose freeze because that has the greatest chance of success. Success meaning survival. If I hear a gunshot, but I don't see a shooter and I feel I'm far enough away, I'm probably going to choose something like flight. I'm going to run. If I'm hiking and I see a poisonous snake and I'm close to it, but I have like a hiking stick or a golf club in my hand and I feel like I can kill that snake, I might choose flight. So a lot of this depends on, one, your conditioned response. Two, your skill level in these various situations, and just what your body deems is the most appropriate and best response to ensure your survival. So once your body chooses a response, it will mount that response. So you fight, you run away, or you freeze. Once you have followed through on that choice, there is a completion that happens. So the fight happens, you kill the snake, you kill the bear, or you wound it enough that you can get away. If you run away, once you actually like outrun the predator and you are far enough away where you can calm down and bring yourself to completion, or if you freeze to the point where you fool the predator enough and the predator wanders off on their merry way, that trauma response or that, defensive response comes to completion. Okay. So to walk us through so far, we're walking about our lives, just, exploratory orienting. We are faced with a stimulus that is a potential threat. We startle, we arrest, we locate, identify, evaluate. If it's perceived as a threat, we engage in defensive orienting. We mount our defensive response, fight, flight, or freeze. Then that comes to completion when we know we are safe again. We may shake it off. We may have ways of discharging that energy. And then once our system settles again, we slowly begin to engage in the process of exploratory orienting again. So we end up back where we started, but we might go a little bit slower and like with a little more caution, now that we've come across this threatening stimulus. But that is essentially the cycle of what we go through in the actual moment where we are faced with a threat. Just going to breathe with that for a second. And I think this is a really important moment to remind all of you that I believe I said this on the first day, but in this world of the Healing Happens community, of, trauma recovery in general, success is survival. So we often get really hard on ourselves, on our bodies, times where they failed us, or, when we get stuck in these loops of a trauma response and we feel like we can't move past it. There's a lot of self-blame and a lot of self-judgment. But remember, your body, your nervous system has a 100% success rate when it comes to responding to threats and traumatic situations, because you are here watching this video. You are alive, you have survived, and that is what success is in this arena. So just keep that in mind. Of course, when we get stuck in these loops and we are mounting a trauma response to something that isn't actually a threat in the moment, or we experience high levels of activation long term, we can run into issues. But still, just having a lot of love and a lot of compassion for our bodies and everything that they have navigated, everything that they have carried us through, and everything that they will continue to carry us through for the rest of our lives. So today's lesson was a little bit more complex. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to pop them in the Healing Happens Facebook group. I'll put another post up for day 3 questions. And I am so, so, so excited to continue this journey with you. So loving you. I hope you learned a lot today, and I will see you again tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific, and we'll continue our discussion about the nervous system and trauma. Mwah.